I've been obsessed with zooming in on the idea of creativity over the last couple years. I've always considered myself a creative person, but now it's been a mission and a passion project of mine to max out my creative abilities and to generally just increase the role that creativity plays in my career and my everyday life. It's been a mix of getting my hands dirty with some new creative hobbies, reading lots of books, joining more creative communities, and a lot of self-reflection. Perfectionism is the death of creative ideas. I've definitely felt the impulse before to save my greatest ideas for when I feel like I'm more ready for them. I'll be overly protective and be scared to act on them because I don't feel like I'm going to be able to do it justice in the current moment, or I just think that I'm not ready to execute it to the fullest extent. But I've realized that kind of thinking is actually not productive at all to my creative process. All it is really is procrastination. And most of the time, if you wait so long to actually act on an idea and you build up all this anticipation around it, you're probably not going to be pleased with the outcome because of all of this pressure that you put on this idea to be executed in the best way possible. Or there's been times too where I've overthought this idea so much where it completely transforms and looks so different than the way it was originally going to. And this overthinking ends up making the idea really watered down. And that's if I ever end up actually acting on that idea, which is a whole other thing. Sometimes you are so protective and precious about this idea that you never feel ready to actually do it. So all it does is just sit there as an idea. Or if it's something that's a little more timely, maybe when you finally feel ready to act on it, it's not relevant anymore. So I've learned to just stop overthinking it as much and just act on my ideas quickly. The more you push yourself creatively, the more ideas are going to come after. A lot of times, if you're super precious about your ideas, you end up having more of a scarcity mindset. So you feel like another great idea will never come again. But if you never act on these ideas and you just have this backload building up, you're not creating more opportunities for new and even better ideas to pop up.
You know I got it. I pull up, I come around, make my round.
I used to be hypersensitive to ruining a hobby by putting too much pressure behind it, but I've realized over the last year or so how gratifying it actually is to really dedicate yourself and commit yourself a little bit more to getting better at your craft. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go crazy with every single hobby that you want to try, but for the things that you really care about getting good at, it is worth it to dedicate yourself a little bit more and have a little bit of discipline. It can be really fun to get started and try something for the first time, but as someone whose taste and ideas are greater than your initial talent, it can really quickly get discouraging. I personally start making excuses when I start hitting some bumps and I kind of disconnect from the process as soon as it starts feeling not as fun anymore. Pushing past that initial hump and holding myself accountable to keep creating, and most of the time that means just taking the next step even if I'm dreading it, ultimately makes this whole creative process not just better, but also more fun in the end. Dedication doesn't have to be so scary and stringent. It can actually really help you enjoy what you're doing a lot more because it feels good to get better at something. And the only way you can do that is with consistency. Started out this unofficial journey, one of my main goals was finding my style, my definitive style. Like there's one common thread that can be pulled throughout all of the different creative work that I do. And this lesson that I learned isn't to say that I haven't had a ton of aha moments of clarity where I really feel like I am continuously discovering what this voice is. But what I have learned is there isn't one clear moment, one singular moment, and it doesn't happen in one singular direction. I'm a firm believer that people don't have just one distinct journey or vision that they're destined to follow throughout their entire creative journey. Just as people are evolving all the time, so is your creative voice. Thinking that everything is going to suddenly fall into place one day is really doing yourself a disservice because, one, you might pigeon yourself into a style that is going to get old really, really quickly, and two, it just takes all the fun out of it. There's so much fun experimentation that can happen, but when you get so wrapped up in finding out exactly what your voice is or trying to determine if something you're thinking of fits that voice explicitly, takes all that fun out of it. I can't say that I've totally tackled this topic right now, so maybe there's a part 2 in a couple years as I continue on this journey, but I feel pretty confident right now that your voice is always going to be evolving, and it is pretty uninspired and uninspiring to think otherwise. It's really hard to be creative in a vacuum. When you surround yourself with other creative people, it rubs off on you. This creativity through osmosis, as I like to think of it, is one of the things that has hit me the hardest over the last couple of years. When you're around more creative and more diverse communities, you start to see problems and opportunities through different lenses. You get to soak in their ideas, their taste, their perspective, which can really help to unlock these parts of your brain that you've never explored before. Things as simple as going to more art events, movie screenings and receptions, conferences, or just random social events held by creative communities can make a big difference. Even if you're not actively exchanging ideas with other people, that energy is contagious, and I feel like I really kind of get a buzz from it. I love those moments when I leave an interaction feeling charged up and inspired to just jot down some new ideas in my Notion system, and a lot of that comes from that synergy that I feel with a lot of the other creative people that I've come in contact with. There are a lot more obvious things that I could say about creativity, like the fact that failure is really productive and it's important to expand your sources of inspiration and experimentation is necessary. But these 4 tips are really what hit home with me over the past year or so. And so they felt the most important to share because they have fundamentally changed the way that I approach creativity. And I think that they kind of hit on something that wasn't so obvious to me at the beginning. So I hope they were helpful for you too, wherever you're at in your creative journey.
Ay, ay. Baby, wanna whip with the boy for the one time.